it's networking. It's like networking has never failed, right?
Yeah.
Networking has never failed to produce results. So it's not about what it's about who and that's always true.
Yeah.
So I just started to know the right people, went to the right places, had the right conversations, and from their audiences, I built my own. But that's not the end of it. You have to continue working on the relationships and adding more value, and that's what it's really all about at the end of the day. If you're an individual who can add value to someone else's life and the lives of other people's audiences and their own lives, then you'll be fine, right? If you can't exist within this universe and add value and not be noticed and not make it. There are certain strategies that help you get to the end point a little bit faster, right? But if you're adding value, like you'll be found, or opportunity will present itself, and then it's on you and your responsibility to actually act on that.
The Drive to Succeed podcast. We have the CEO of Groundhog Inc., Adrian Tobey. Welcome to the show.
It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So I know you have a lot of things to talk about digital marketing despite your young age. I know you're trying to battle that kind of thing. And you really became successful at a very young age, because I've seen your bio and it's quite an interesting journey for you as well. So just to give us a little context, who is Adrian for our listeners who are just listening to the first time?
Absolutely. So I just turned 24 in May. I have a number of products. And I started out in sort of the digital marketing space back in 2015. My parents have owned a digital marketing agency for the longest time. And before that, they did a lot of digital marketing training back when search engine optimization was really easy. And getting on the first page of Google search results was fairly trivial. Those days are long gone. But what my family used to do is basically tour the country in hotel rooms, hotel conference rooms, and seminar rooms, and they'd put 30 to 60 people in a room, and then over the course of 1 to 3 days, we would actually have them come in with their laptop and write a couple blog posts, build a couple backlinks, and lo and behold, 9 times out of 10, they'd be on either page 2 or page 1, certainly much higher than they were before of the Google search results. And that was a fairly effective business model. Then Google Panda update rolled out, and the effectiveness of that 1 to 3 day course went way down, because there's just so many more steps to take and so much more thought that had to be put into the content, and it became less feasible. And more people, as we tried to fit all of the information that people needed in these 3 days, more and more people ended up just saying, well, hey, listen, no, I don't really have time for this. I'm running the business and I don't want to do this. Will you just do it for me? So out of that sprouted my parents' digital marketing agency. And I worked in that agency from 2015 to 2018, using all sorts of tools, WordPress, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, our ActiveCampaign. We built a whole bunch of different systems and processes for hundreds of different organizations here in Canada and throughout the world. And then at the same time, I was also doing university part-time. And in my 3rd year of university, I was looking at how long it would actually take me to graduate and actually get my diploma. And it was way out in 2025 or something ridiculous. And I was just like, there's no way I'm going to put in that level of energy for this piece of paper. So I ended up dropping out. And then I also didn't really want to do agency work for the rest of my life. It's very demanding. It's very, it's very much always you're having cobbler's son syndrome. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that terminology.
I'm not sure what that is.
The cobbler's son is a cobbler is a shoemaker.
Yeah.
Right. So they make shoes or they fix shoes, and you take your worn out shoes, you take them to a cobbler with nice shoes.
Yeah.
Stuff that's made in Italy. You take them to a cobbler and they replace the soles and shine them up and whatever. Right. And the cobbler's son always wears the worst shoes because the cobbler's son is always working on everybody else's. Yeah. Right. And he never has time for his own. And that's very much like the agency life. Agencies are so focused on the results of their clients, which they should be, but they rarely ever have time to focus specifically on results for themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm very I want to create results for myself kind of person. So that's when I started to look at, well, what kind of products, what kind of solutions can we bring to the table that would allow me to create results for myself. Started looking at software. I was very familiar with a lot of digital marketing software. I'm like, well, what can we improve or innovate in this area? And that's how I ended up building Groundhog as a WordPress focused solution for agencies primarily.
Interesting. Yeah, it's really funny how you say that, because most of agency owners like ourselves, right? We tend to focus on looking for new clients, but once that is taken away from you, what's left, right? I always also interviewed other agency owners, and they somehow found the same pain point, right? Probably they were working on multi-million-dollar projects, and then when the client closes up, they're trying to reinvent again themselves, either online or offline. But interesting, you mentioned, so you were trained early on by your parents, and you run an agency. You also run an online course. I'm sorry, it's an in-person course, right? Because it was a hotel.
Originally, yes. Yeah. Back when people could do those things.
Interesting. But one of the things about digital marketing is that sometimes it can be really overwhelming, that even though you spend 3 days with, the people, the delegates who attended, they can feel like these are new stuff for me, right? So what made you go that route in going to building a product for WordPress? Why not just create an online course that does that? You know what I mean?
Well, I've always been into computer science. That's just kind of been that's what I was going to school for. Was computer science at U of T. And I had already built a WordPress kind of plugin business before. So I built, my first product was called FormLift. And I was building that within the agency as a product for the agency.
That's with your dad's business. I mean,
yes. And I was building, it was kind of like my baby, but I didn't get it incorporated or anything. So we just ran all the finances through the agency. And, every time we got a new client, they'd buy that, nice bit of recurring revenue there.
Yeah.
And also sold it just within the circles that I was a part of, like the Infusionsoft community and the certified partner community of that is fairly close knit. So, I've pretty much met all of my customers for that product at conferences and use FormLift. Yeah. The problem with that, the reason that we didn't really take that product and run with it is because it's capped in terms of the number of people that would actually use it. So one of the things about running a software company is a lot of people tack their software companies onto the backs of giants, right? HubSpot, Infusionsoft, ActiveCampaign, Shopify, right? And, a lot of these companies have massive audiences, but at the end of the day, your potential customer acquisition is capped by the number of customers that they have, right? So this FormLift product was capped at the number of people that were going to be using Infusionsoft. And I also had no ownership over the actual customer. If I'm running a Shopify store and I buy a $9 a month app to go onto Shopify, even though I'm paying for that additional app, I'm not their customer. I'm still Shopify's customer. If I cancel Shopify, everything else gets canceled too.
Yeah.
Right. So that was kind of the reality of my first product. And I'm like, well, we can't grow this because we have
on someone's platform.
Yeah, we need to have control over the customer and their customer journey. And, Infusionsoft has never really been, the strongest leader in terms of customer retention. So we're like, well, let's figure something else out. And I'd already built a WordPress plugin, fairly familiar with the process, knew how to market it. and just built basically a CRM marketing automation platform that an agency could install into a client's WordPress website, eliminates a whole bunch of problems, a whole bunch of headaches, and saves a whole lot of time and money. And that seemed like a pretty good idea.
Interesting. And how long has it been started? Because also one of your messages is always about like bootstrapping a company, right? So what are your thoughts right now? I know there's a lot of like resources for traffic right now. But what are your thoughts on like building, something like you built on a zero budget?
Well, I didn't have zero budget. It is bootstrapped, but it wasn't a zero budget. We did the friends and family funding round, which you should do. Like, if people are willing to support you, you should accept that support, which I did as a loan and paid everybody back.
Yeah.
But take what you can get help. It certainly helps you get a little bit further, a little bit faster.
Yep.
Lets you help more people, makes bigger impact. I mean, I've always bootstrapped everything that I've ever done. And so Formlift, Groundhog, Mailhawk, my other products are all bootstrapped as well. And I mean, I'm all for that. You can go get venture capital money, right? It's just, it comes with strings. That's fine. There's other venture capital options these days, though, that haven't existed before, like crowdsource funding, which is kind of a new thing. That looks really, really interesting. There are like micro VC funders where the loans aren't, or like the investments aren't millions of dollars, or in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they only come with like a 10% equity, and and that those things seem kind of good. And we talked to a couple people. We never actually took anybody's money.
Yeah.
But the conversations were a lot different than, say, millions of dollars. And frankly, at our level that we're playing at, we spoke to a friend in the VC world, and we're like, well, how much equity would we have to give up if we wanted to get, a good chunk, a couple mil? And he basically said way too much that you'd be actually willing to give up. Right. Yeah. Because that's just the game. And if you're not willing to give up equity, then you basically just price yourself out of the conversation already. And I've always been like, hold on to everything, don't give up equity. If you have to take money, borrow it, pay it back. And that's just what you got to do.
And it's very interesting because I've seen the platform Groundhog, right? Groundhog.io, and inside it's a WordPress plugin, but it integrates to a lot of things, right? And just a quick question, because unlike Infusionsoft or other softwares out there, there's a form of like they built a platform separately, where it's like a fully like SaaS product, but in your case, you go into a WordPress. So is there an advantage on that or a disadvantage, or how do even people find the product on WordPress for the plugin?
Well, in terms of advantages and disadvantages, I never say that Groundhog is better. Other people will say that for me, but I'll never say it is different. It is different.
Yeah.
It has gives and takes. So it's open source and it's self-hosted, right? Those are the two big things. Open source and self-hosted means that you have full ownership over all of the data. You're with Infusionsoft for 5 years. Okay, you have like millions of people on your list, and hundreds of campaigns running, and all these things. You're having a rough month, and your $2,000 Infusionsoft bill, right? You can't pay it. It happens. Like there's entrepreneurship. Things go up, things go down. You don't pay that bill. What happens to your stuff? Gets turned off, gets closed, gets deleted. You don't pay the bill, you don't get the software.
Yeah.
Right. That's the reality of SaaS. You're just renting space. If you don't pay your rent, you get evicted.
Yeah.
And with open source self-hosted stuff, you pay licensing fees mostly. I mean, in my case, you pay a licensing fee. It gets installed on your site. You don't pay the bill. The only thing you don't get is updates and support, but everything continues to work as exactly when you last paid.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a big advantage to a lot of people. They have complete ownership over the data. They can basically control the entire customer journey. It makes compliance with GDPR, HIPAA, CASL, California legislation super easy. because you can put it on a server in the country that you live in. And that makes it really, really, really effective for people who are really like locking down on their compliance stuff. With that, you know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, I think the trade-offs are worth it. So the trade-offs being that you are now responsible, right, for that data, right? So if you're with a SaaS provider, you know, they're providing the security and everything, and if something goes wrong, like it's their fault, right? If something goes wrong and you're self-hosting it, you know, that's your responsibility. There's tons of ways to mitigate that, though. You know, just invest in good hosting, right? From the literally hundreds of amazing hosting providers that there are for WordPress. Invest in a solid security plugin like WordPress or WordFence or Shield Pro or Security or whatever. Tons of great WordPress security providers. You know, you just load those up and you're pretty much golden, right? You're also responsible for your own uptime, right? You know, you got to make sure that if the WordPress site's not working, your list's not working, your marketing automation's not working. So as long as the site's working, again, you're good. And mitigating that by choosing good hosting providers, using top tier WordPress plugins. You know, you're not using anything off of like the back pages, right? You're making sure that you're using stuff by serious authors, etc. Right? So there's tons of ways to lower your risk for self-hosting, and it's just taking the time and steps to do that. And then at the end of the day, you know, once you've taken those steps, your self-hosted situation would be comparable to a SaaS hosted situation.
Interesting. And when you messaged me about regarding your product, so you told me you already reached 2,700 user base that are recurring. Is that it?
We have 3,000.
3,000, understood. And so how do you ramp that up from 0 to 3,000? And how long was Groundhog now?
We started Groundhog in October 2018.
Interesting.
So it's been almost 3 years.
3 years.
3 years in October.
Understood. And 1,000, you could say like 1,000 per year user acquisition.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could say that, but the first year was more like 200.
That is it. And what's the reason for the jump of user acquisition? Obviously, you come into podcasts because there would be a lot of like people interested in marketing automation as well. But what are your thoughts in terms of like lead gen?
Lead gen's hard, man. It really is. Paid lead gen, I find is difficult. So I'll tell you a story.
Sure.
Back in 2018, we built. Well, I was working by myself at that point, right? I built Groundhog by myself in 2 months, an MVP. And then I threw it up on the WordPress.org repository where all the plugins go, put up a sales page, and I gave it a ridiculously low price, certainly much lower than what we're selling it for now, and made a couple of ads. I had what I thought was a really clever ad. It was a picture of money being flushed down a toilet. And I said, and the caption was "Stop wasting money on marketing automation," right? Because the whole point about being self-hosted is like it's a flat rate flat rate yearly fee, self-hosted. That's another thing. There's no scaling price. So we charge the same amount for someone with 500 people on the list as someone with 500,000 people on their list. It's the same price. And we're unique pretty much in that category of pricing for this kind of software. And so I had this ad, and I think I spent in a week, in 7 days, $3,000 of like sending traffic to this ad. And it got a lot of engagement, comments, and likes and shares and whatnot. And so sending all these people to this landing page. And then when the dust settles at the end of the week, and I spent, oh my God, I spent $3,000. How did that happen? I had made no money. I think its total like impression count was like, or total like interactions or like impressions count was something around the lines of like 1,000 or 2,000, and out of that, not one sale. So that was just a total bust. You know, just stopped that immediately. like turn off. Obviously paid ads on Facebook had not worked, right? I can't say that I ever spent a good amount of time doing Google ads. Like we do a little bit now. We buy our competitors' names, although the average cost per click for CRM or marketing automation is $40 on Google ads, which for a small business is cost prohibitive. And the reason that it's so expensive, that HubSpot and Salesforce can just afford to spend whatever the hell they want. So they drive up the cost to price people at a lower level out, like myself, which is an effective strategy because I get priced out. So we spend money on buying the names of some of our closer competitors. That's pretty much all the PPC that we do. What I found to be much more effective, although not instantaneous, and that's kind of the thing, right? As marketers, we want instant results. We want to be able to spend money and then immediately turn $1 into $2, right? And when you're in competitive industries, it can be quite difficult. When you're kind of like the solo operator in, a 30-kilometer radius, it's like, it's no contest. Let's go. Let's spend $1, $1 per click, and then turn that into $10 or whatever, right? Which we've done for clients in the past. I remember one specific client out in London, Ontario. What he does is he does construction bins. If you're renovating your house, you get a bin, you dump in the driveway. Got the thing, fill up the bin, and they come and they take the bin away. There were 2 bin companies. There was Bin There, Dump That, and then there was our client, London Bin Rentals. And we did so good for London Bin Rentals that the other company actually closed up shop and moved to a different city. So it's possible to do really well with, paid ads. It just depends on the level of competition, right? And so what I found way more effective is pretty much all of our growth has been organic. I spent a lot of time coming on to shows like these, talking about the story, talking about what it does. I've probably been on a few dozen podcasts at this point, do one every couple months, maybe a little bit more. I used to co-host a show with a friend, Jonathan Denwood. I did that for a year, and kind of like mooched off his audience and brought them into the fold. I do webinars with other product providers. I do integrations with other product providers. So if we build an integration and we go to a product and say, hey, we built this integration, they're like, great, let's have a webinar. We'll email our list of like 50,000 people. And that actually happened with a product called Buddy Boss.
They're based in Canada as well, or in the US?
Buddy Boss is I think they're in Israel.
Understood. Okay.
I think. But yeah, we built an integration with their product, and I showed it to them. Like, great, let's have you on a webinar like 2 weeks from now. We're going to email our list of like 50,000 people. There's like 200 people on the call. That was a $5,000 close. And then, the rest trickled in a couple days later, because the discount code expires like at the end of the week, right? So everybody thinks about it. So a lot of that, and that has been a very effective strategy. It's networking, it's like networking has never failed, right? Networking has never failed to produce results. So, it's not about, what it's about who you know. And that's always true. So I just started to know the right people, went to the right places, had the right conversations, and from their audiences, I built my own.
Interesting. So it's a form of you can say growth hack, like tapping into other people's audience and bringing it back to you and something like that.
I don't think it's a growth hack because it took probably 6 months before I actually saw any return on the investment in time and energy, right? It's a slog. It is. It takes time to build relationships, right? I remember getting on a show with Jonathan Denwood, and that's how I met a really good friend of mine, Chris Badgett, who runs another WordPress plugin company, Lifter LMS. And I was on his show, and he's like, you should totally be on my show. And I'm like, great, schedule it 4 months from now.
Then release it another 2 months.
Great. It's like, can we do that next week? Maybe no, but that's kind of how it works, right? You build the relationships, you make friends, and that eventually turns into your 15 minutes in the for 15 minutes in the spotlight, right? And then you make your pitch, and if your pitch is good, then it works out, and then you continue, right? But that's not the end of it. You have to continue working on the relationships and adding more value, and that's what it's really all about at the end of the day. If you're an individual who can add value to someone else's life and the lives of other people's audiences and their own lives, then you'll be fine, right? If you can't exist within this universe and add value and not be noticed and not make it. There are certain strategies that help you get to the end point a little bit faster, right? But if you're adding value, like you'll be found, or opportunity will present itself, and then it's on you and your responsibility to actually act on that. Right? I think that's a fairly true statement. If you're not adding value, then that's it's a little bit different, right? You can go pretty long without anything really happening. But I'll tell you what, when I decided that I have value that I can bring to the table, how do I share this with people? How do I get my product out there? How do I get the way that I ended up on those podcasts in the first place is I just went to Google and I typed in WordPress podcast and I made a list of 30 people and I emailed every single one of them. And maybe 4 or 5 people got back to me
saying
out of those 30. And I got a lot of, we don't take guest submissions. We'll reach out to you if we want you, right?
Just saying no right now.
Actually, I remember that. I remember I was on one show, and they're like, "You asked to be on like a year ago." I'm like, "Yeah, that was me." It's like, and then we reached out. I'm like, "Yeah, it's nice to be here." But 4 or 5 people got back to me, and they're like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you on the show." And here's a Calendly link. Book yourself in, and you go and you do it. And then all of these podcasters listen to each other's podcasts, or they talk on their Slack channels or whatever. And they're like, I just had this Adrian guy on, you should check him out. It was a good show. And that's kind of how it spurred. And then I think it kind of came to a head. I was on the Mixergy podcast with Adam Warner. And that was a lot of fun. And from that show, because all of the other podcasters listen to this guy's show, right? And like, wow, that was a really good show. So I got immediately like a bunch of emails from a bunch of different podcasts. Like, hey, listen, I just listened to you on Mixergy. Would you come be on my show? And I'm like, sure. Why not? And it kind of just snowballs from there. So once you kind of get like the big fish, it kind of just like continues to snowball. But it started with me just Googling and just soliciting, cold calling, door knocking,
cold email, exactly.
Selling myself and my time for free, as long as you're adding value, right? If you can bring value to the call.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really love about when you like speak for the past 5-10 minutes is that most people think that when you put yourself online, it's gonna go back instantly, right? Because if you search just the term like how to make money online on YouTube, you'll probably see 10 different ads about like the shiny object syndrome. But of course,
affiliate, make a product, hire someone on Upwork, run an agency. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's interesting. And also just a quick question. I'm really curious as well, because most of the time, there's a gap between generational founders like yourself, right? And there are times where you probably, maybe back in the day, not now, but maybe back in the day, like people are, having a hard time to take you seriously. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, people for younger generation listening probably on your episode right now.
There have only been in my career a few pointed incidents of my age being taken into account in terms of the value that I could provide and the experience that I bring to the table. And I have been fortunate that it's only been limited to a few incidents. And I don't really want to go like too deep into that because it's shitty. But there's a number of people who are my age that kind of fall into that category where we're all we're young, we're hot shots, right? We want to make change. We want to move mountains. That's just what we want to do. And there's a lot of people in the world who haven't been able to do that. They're much older than us, and they see us doing it, and that, that's what ends up turning into those incidents where there's targeted verbiage towards, you can't do this because you've only been on this planet so many years.
Yeah.
Right. And there is no excuse, or there's no replacement for years of experience, right? You've just, once you've been around a certain amount of time, you've seen a number of amount of things. To compensate for that, and when I run in those situations, I merely surround myself with people who are much more experienced than I am. So I've been very fortunate that everyone in my inner circle and everyone in my kind of the direct circle of influence would never ever question my thoughts or anything based on my age, because I surround myself with people who have many years experience, and whenever I'm unsure of something, I don't make something up, right? I ask them, have you seen this before? What would you do? Right. And then I get their answer, their very experienced answer. And then I take that information and I go to, person B, and I'm like, I learned this from X person who's very experienced, right? I think it's a good idea for these reasons. Here's why we should implement it. Right. I always back up my assertions with either my own life experiences or the experiences of others and where I got that from. I never make wild claims baseless on fact, or on not based on fact, and I think that's for the most part served me well. It's just the fact that I surround myself with experienced people, and whenever I don't have an answer, I don't make something up. I go ask someone who knows better than I do, and that's also part of the battle, is knowing better or knowing when to go ask for help and when to seek out someone who knows better, right? That's also part of the battle. And some people don't know when to do that. I probably do it too much, to the point where my circle of influence is quite annoyed. They're like, okay, Adrian, I think you can figure this one out by yourself.
Yeah, understood. Well, as we move towards the end of the show, just tell us what is Groundhog all about, and how can it help agencies and entrepreneurs into digital marketing?
Absolutely. So marketing and CRM is a lot of the times a very cost prohibitive product. When you have a list of 10,000 people, your bill can be in the thousands of dollars a month, depending on the provider that you choose. With Groundhog, it's super easy. Just install a WordPress plugin onto your WordPress site. It's a flat fee, which means that as your business grows, you will never pay more. And we also grandfather our pricing. So even if we did increase our pricing, you would always pay the same rate that if
you're locked in
the first place locked in at.
Awesome.
We have integrations with all of the major WordPress plugin providers, WooCommerce, easy to downloads, every single WordPress form plugin, Lifter LMS, LearnDash, BuddyBoss, if you're building a community. And we build a lot of those in-house, and all of them under one pricing structure. So you don't have to go out and you don't have to buy Zapier, you don't have to buy all of the other different third-party integration platforms. It's just install, and it all works nice in harmony. So if that sounds something like your business could use, that you would benefit from saving a whole lot of time and a whole lot of money, then go to groundhog with 2gs.io. You can find us there. If you're interested in me personally and kind of more other shows that I've done like these, and other value conversation or other value laden conversations that I've had with other amazing hosts, you can go to Adrian Tobey, Tobey.com, and where I post every single one of my recorded interviews there.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much, Adrian. My last and final question is, if everything, I know you're still young, but just in case, if everything is stripped away from you, right, and you got to start all over again, I don't know, maybe you try to flip Groundhog and sell it to like a big software company, or I don't know, or a VC company, right? And suddenly, or you found yourself lost and you just wanted to reinvent yourself again. Everything is stripped away from you. What would be your main drive to succeed?
It's like one of those, that's like the Russell Brunson 30 days question right there.
Really?
Are you familiar with that, the 30-day challenge?
I'm not sure. I'm always sure the third day challenge, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it's part of it. But you know.
Let me think. Main drive to succeed. Well, I mean, I've always just been an incredibly competitive person. Ever since I was like super young, I've just been incredibly competitive. And I think that's certainly part of it. It's just I have an internal drive to succeed, and there's also, I just want to help people. That's why I do groundhog. There's for personal fame and glory, sure, but my main drive at the end of the day is, I want to help other people. I want to see people succeed. I want to see businesses succeed. I want to see agencies succeed. Having come from that life, I know it's a freaking tough go, right? And I know all of the pain points that come with it. And I just want to be able to, when I read reviews, of which we have, I think, 99 on our WordPress repository listing. I go through those reviews sometimes, and I tear up because these people's lives have been like forever changed by something that my team and I created, and I just think that's really cool. And I think that's the reason that I do what I do, is just to make change in the universe that helps people just live a little bit of a better life.
Understood. Well, once again, Adrian and Tobey, thank you so much for sharing your journey. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you so much.